So there's a movie called Han Gong Ju, or Princess Han, that was released in 2014. The main character's real name is Princess, and it follows a story of a high school girl with a difficult background. Her parents are not taking care of her, she's living with her friends, and due to having no adult supervision, she is SA/R'd by more than 44 people. She tries to cope with her life after the incident, moving around schools, trying to make friends, and it portrays how difficult it is to deal with such a horrific incident and still not having her parents to comfort her or to properly deal with this trauma. You might think the scenario is so outrageous that it must be a movie, a made-up story, but it's actually based on a real-life event called the MilYang incident. This video will include some spoilers from the movie, just FYI, I'm letting you guys know. In today's video, I really want to compare the movie scenarios to the real life story. This case happened back in 2004, and if you guys have seen my Inhwa school incident video, in that video I compared it with the Silence movie that's out on Netflix. They did a recreation of the real life Inhwa incident. That story was a huge SA/R case that happened in Korea to an entire school of disabled students back in 2005. So cases like this, including the movies that was recreated, changed laws in Korea. So I think it's very important to continuously talk about these stories so that it is never forgotten, so that we can prevent this from happening in the future. And to let you guys know, the YouTube algorithm has been very tough recently. It is constantly changing, and to get these stories heard out there, and if you want to hear more around the world cases like this, remember to like and share these videos with your friends. Even just leaving a comment down below on your thoughts on today's case really helps. And remember, I reply to all my early birds, so keep that notification bell. So around 2003, on the month of June, on a hot day, a 14-year-old girl named Sarah Choi, and this is a fake name for the video because her name was legally never revealed, although it was leaked, was living in Ulsan City and attending her middle school. She was born in 1989 back then. Today she would be about 30-something years old. Sarah grew up from what you would call a broken home. Her father was a severe alcoholic. People who have met Sarah's father say that they can't even hold a conversation with him. That's how much troubles that he has in his own life. The parents also got a divorce when Sarah was very young at only about 7 years old. Sarah's mother left the household, so the father, the alcoholic father, was taking care of 3 kids, Sarah and her 2 siblings, 1 boy and a female. In the movie Princess Han, Princess is seen bouncing around houses, and she is actually living with a friend and a friend's boyfriend and her boyfriend's father. It just portrays, you know, a broken home of these teenagers bouncing around houses to houses, very unstable. But in real life, Sarah was living with her father. Also in real life, it is reported that Sarah's father would be physical with the kids. So you could see what kind of environment Sarah grew up in. She was used to a very bad, broken home. So again, in June of 2003, Sarah would enter some kind of a chat room. And if you guys remember, or if you weren't born, obviously internet wasn't like today, but back then there were a lot of, I think, random chatting sites and chatting things that you could do, chatting with people around your city or even just like the whole country. But South Korea is pretty small, so like you could pretty much meet anyone that day if you wanted. It is there where Sarah would meet a 17-year-old student named Kim, born in 1986, who claimed to be living and attending a school in MilYang City, which was just right next to Ulsan City. There are some reports that she also met Kim through accidentally by getting a phone number from someone. It is a little unclear of how they exactly met, but regardless, they were chatting on the internet for a couple months before meeting in real life. It was January of 2004 when Kim would suggest to Sarah that he wanted to meet up with her in real life. Now Sarah, not having the proper supervision from her parents, she was kind of allowed to do, I guess, whatever she wanted. I remember back when I was in middle school, when I told my parents, my mother, that I wanted to go hang out with a friend in the city because I lived about an hour away from the city. They freaked out. Like, my parents were like, I'm like going once to the city in my whole entire life, and my mom would be so protective, saying that no, you cannot go out all the way there, you're too young. Obviously back then when I was a kid, I was mad at my parents for being too protective, but it's exact cases like this on why parents need to be there to protect your kids, especially if you're that young, to never go out and meet someone that you met online. So again, January 2004, before Sarah decided to meet Kim in real life, she decided to go to MilYang City by herself, a 14-year-old. And professionals who have worked on Sarah's case say that Sarah was unfortunately the perfect victim. Because when you come from a broken family with not enough love that your parents give you, according to professionals, when other people in your life just showed you a little bit of kindness that you're not used to, that is what the victim falls for. They feel like, oh my god, this person is being so nice to me. It's an excitement, it's an attention that they crave that they do not get at home. So the 17-year-old boy who just gave a little bit of excitement to Sarah, saying that let's meet, let's get food, let's hang out, let's have fun, Sarah completely fell for it. So Sarah finally met Kim in real life in an undisclosed location somewhere in MilYang City. Apparently they met at a location where secluded from a lot of people. Sarah did not know that Kim would come with multiple boys, fellow students with him. And shortly after, Sarah would be hit by a steel rod, knocking her unconscious and in a weak position. And this is when 12 boys, all students and same age as Kim, would be dragging or holding, I don't know how they did this, but brought Sarah in to the motel that they rented out. Now, first of all, how did students, minors, even rent out an inn or a motel, which is illegal obviously everywhere around the world? And how did the motel front desk people not even notice that they brought someone in? I've been to motels in Korea as well, and a lot of them actually have like this tiny window. A lot of motel staff know that there's people who want to stay there and not want to be bothered. So these aren't like nice motels. These are like cheap motels where you could just bypass and bring anyone and no one would notice. Again, this is when the first G grape happened. Not only did G gang and grapes happen, but these are bad people. They knew exactly what they were doing from the get-go. They would film and take pictures, videos on their cell phones, on their camera. And before sending the victim back home, they would threaten her, saying that we're going to release this online. We're going to be telling this to your parents, sending this to your school. Your whole entire teacher, schoolmates are going to see this embarrassing, disgusting video. I mean, this was a major fear tactic that they would use on their victim. In the movie, the scenario is a little different of how everything goes down. In the movie, Princess is again living with her friends, and one of her friends' boyfriend is like the weak link of the group, right? And he is getting always teased on, but he wants to fit in with this group, because if you don't, you're gonna have like all these other students come and try to continuously tease you, and it's going to be a hell of a high school year for you. So in a way, this weak link guy has to like obey his classmates if he really wants to fit in. He invites these bad friends to his house because that is what they wanted to do, starts drinking, smoking in the house. And this is when the event happens inside of the apartment to Princess and Princess's friend, technically the boyfriend's girlfriend. In the movie, they portray it as it only happening once. But in real life, it was much worse than that, because to Sarah, it happened for almost an entire year. Can you believe that? Not only once did this happen, but multiple times for exactly 11 months. They knew her father's phone number, they knew her house phone number, so would even call her house saying that I have your house number, I'm gonna be telling this to your father if you don't come out, if you don't hang out with us and do it again, or even go to the police or tell your parents about it. So for up to a year, she would be forced to meet up with them at playgrounds, empty sports buses at school, at different motels, at one student's dormitory that he lived alone because of his studies. And each time, Sarah claims that there were at least 7 to 10 people that came to these incidences, taking turns and almost new people every single incident. And they would even rob her of her own money, a little money that she had, probably her father gave to her to get lunch or snacks or take the bus and things like that. And here is the part that is just so hard to wrap your hands around in. In the newspapers and in the news, it is reported that there were 44 suspects, but in real life, there were up to 120 suspects. Can you wrap your head around that? Up to 120 suspects in real life. We'll get to this later, but there were actually 44 people who were named to the police, and she could not name or remember the entire 120 people. So it was only 44 people that she could actually point out that got the interrogation by the police. So in real life, there were more than 2 times the suspects. So how it started was, Kim, the 17-year-old, would tell his group of buddies. The group of buddies would have more group of buddies and it just spread to rumors and rumors, and that there was this girl that they could call out to do whatever they wanted to do with because she was under their control. I mean, the psychologist trick that was used in this case was crazy. Not only are you threatened, they already have an embarrassing, disgusting incident taped and photographed of you. Now there are over 100 people that know your face. This is a very scary situation for even adults, and you're letting a 14-year-old girl deal with this. Now, somewhere along the line, they also made Sarah's little sister and cousin come out, but thank God at least they were not SA or R. They were just physically assaulted and had their items stolen and money stolen. I was trying to honestly figure out, how is it possible to have so many evil kids out there, evil boys out there? And in the movie, Sarah's friend's boyfriend, he's like the little weakling, right? I do believe in real life as well, not all these 100 boys were into this because, this is what they started out from. I do believe that some of them were teased to do this. Like in college, they have that sorority stuff where they make you do things to join their little club, their little cliques. I think these bosses of these cliques brought people in to tease these boys and pressure them into doing these things so that they can, again, be part of the cool clique, part of the cool gang. Another unfortunate thing was that Sarah was used to kind of this environment. It was said that Sarah's father would be physical with their kids. So it is seen that she could have been kind of numb to already these kind of situations. Of course, what happened to her in her home versus this is very different, but still, when you're kind of used to that kind of environment, it can make you numb and not even seek out for help. Now, according to Sarah, by November, almost 1 year in, she was breaking down and she was in extreme distress. She was going to the gyno to get treatments herself. She was expressing behavior that was just not right for her age. And finally, her aunt started to notice some bad signs. And finally, her aunt did get through to Sarah, and Sarah just completely opened up everything that has been happening to her. And it is so unfortunate that her mother was not there for this. Unfortunately that didn't happen, but Sarah's aunt did tell the mother, and they both decided to go to the police and finally report this. It was November of 2004 when the first police report was made, and the family, Sarah's family, pleaded with the police to keep this case a secret. So usually when you make a police report, sometimes, like a lot of the times actually, these cases are leaked to the media. People probably already know who you are just by your name, your age, what city you live in. Of course, they did not want this kind of negative attention from people around them, because it is embarrassing to have to go to school or work and have people talk about you of what happened to you. The family also requested that the investigator please be a female. They wanted a female investigator because Sarah felt more comfortable coming and telling the details to a female versus a male, but that did not happen. Now the law has changed, and in today for SA/R cases, when a female reports, you can talk to a female officer. But back then, this was not really readily available. The investigation itself was also blood boiling for people, because it was unbelievable how the officers dealt with this case. During the investigation, the investigators would ask uncomfortable questions and remarks to Sarah. For example, they would ask Sarah, "Did you seduce the boys? Did you ask for it? You might have ruined the reputation of MilYang City." Then only 2 to 3 weeks later since the report, a police officer would leak the information, details of the case, and personal information about the victim, Sarah. So how this happened is that I've been to Korean police stations before, and there are media people, like media staff, that actually wait in police station to see who's coming in and out, just in case that they would, pick up on a juicy story. So it's very common for stories to be leaked or, be told to the media. But they don't want this to happen, because now you know who the victim is. Now you know where she lives. Now you know the whole embarrassing story that happened to you. Not only that, but when the police made the victim identify each boys, which is crucial, they actually did this in the same same room. Apparently, you're supposed to use like a one-sided mirror where you could see through but the other person can't, so that the suspect and the victim are not staring to the soul of each other. I mean, that could be very dangerous, right? You're looking in the eye of the suspect and you have to tell in detail of who was who and who did what. They were made to stay in the same room with a translucent glass, and she had to point out if she remembered what boy did what to her and tell that in detail to these police officers in front of the suspect. I mean, so you see like the unprofessional way that this investigation had gone. And again, later on, this is why the law and like the system changed, which is good. But we're talking about 2000s. It's the 21st century. It wasn't even like 56 years ago. It was only what, like 18 years ago. So in the movie, Princess has to move to different schools. And this is very important because it happened in real life to Sarah. And schools, maybe unlike in other countries, I don't know, like in America, like finishing high school is very, very important. In America, you have like tests like GED where it's equal to your high school diploma, but in Korea, it's not really like that. And it is said that if you're a high school dropout, you can't get into corporate offices, like your life is just going to be part-time jobs for your whole entire life. And once a year, everybody, the whole students have to take, it's basically like SAT in Korea, and this test is so important because it almost determines your life path. So the educational system, the judgments and stigma that comes around with school is very, very strict in Korea. And because of this, the high schools did not want to accept Sarah. So she actually had to move school 4 times, and each time they found out about what happened to Sarah, they would tell her, no, we can't take her. No, she has to move schools and she has to continuously transfer. And this is because the schools believe that someone, a victim like Sarah and what she has gone through would tarnish the school's name, would tarnish, you know, other students like hearing about this. In the movie, you see the princess finally, it seems like she's settling down into her new school, but that's when she's bombarded by these random people, which turned out to be the suspect's parents. And this happened in real life. Shockingly, because her name and who she was revealed to the public because of the media, the suspect's parents found out where Sarah was going to school, where she was living, and they would literally stalk her and bombard her during class, yelling at her, screaming at her, some people blaming her for this, and mostly the suspect's parents pleading to mediate with Sarah. She even had to hide in school bathrooms because the suspect's parents would be literally waiting in front of her classroom. And because of this, she actually had to drop out of her 4th high school and she never got to finish. So eventually, there were speculated to be about over 100 suspects, 120-ish to be exact, but there were only 44 suspects that Sarah could name exactly. And here is a video of them literally lining up like a school field trip. Like, can you believe this many boys times what, like 2, 3, 4 times? People who weren't even booked for investigation because she could not name them, doing something to this poor little girl for a year. Can you believe this? Investigators found out that actually the video that Sarah was in was already leaked, posted photos of it somewhere online, and it was already being seen by many people across the world. But they also found out that Sarah was not the only victim. They did this to different people, including some of their girlfriends. The video also had been seen by many, many classmates of these boys, and it seems like the whole city already have seen this disgusting tape. If you guys have seen my silenced video already, you guys will know that in a lot of Asian countries, not only South Korea, SA/R accusations used to be almost like a civil matter. If you wanted to mediate with a person, you can, and they will not be prosecuted. You have like 44 boys' parents here, literally coming and showing up to the school, to Sarah's house, to Sarah's father's work, to Sarah's mother's place, and begging. And apparently Sarah's mother says that there were parents literally waiting in front of their house, their apartment, throughout the whole midnight. And eventually, like, the family just could not live anymore, so the father and mother ended up settling with 13 suspects' parents for compensation. Actually 14 suspects' families, and they received in total 5천만 won, or about $45,000 in total. The problem is, once you mediate, you cannot prosecute them at all for the same crime forever. At least that was the law back then, not anymore, but this was the law. So a lot of the suspect's parents on interviews on camera would tell the media, why should I feel bad for her? They should have raised a proper daughter. If a girl comes and seduces a boy, what kind of male would not fall for it? And this would be the majority of the suspect's parents' reaction. They did not feel bad for Sarah that their own kids have done this. I mean, honestly, if I was the victim, I would make in court the suspects and the suspect's parents see and replay the disgusting tapes and photos to see exactly what their sons have done. And it does not end here. I'm sorry for the continuous punches of shocking things, but apparently Sarah's father have taken most of the money, the $45,000 in settlement. He took most of it and shared it with his family, like his brothers and sisters. So in the end, Sarah herself did not even get to touch this little tiny amount of money that she received. Her father also died shortly from alcohol-related diseases. Out of the 44, minus 14 who were mediated and could not be prosecuted ever were sent to youth divisions. And youth divisions are apparently where you just do volunteer work. You get, I guess, classes and training on how to become a good person. I mean, it is heaven compared to what they should have gotten, right? And 10 were forwarded to prosecution, but the sentencing later was that they were just sent to youth division camps. And even the cherry on the top, I think this is the most shocking part, at least the law back then, because all of these boys, the suspects, were minors, their records are clean of this case. So they were able to go to work, college, whatever they wanted to do with absolute no record of this happening to them. Now, in the court papers, the decisions came to be by the judges because it states that the students were minors and they have a chance to be rehabilitated and becoming a contributing citizens in the future, so harsh punishments should be left out. Let that sink in. And I wondered if how the movie ended, which I will not say in the video, if you want to watch it, go watch it, is how it really ended in real life, but it did not. It seems like in real life, she has been living a quiet life. She has been doing some part-time jobs here and there. The family moved to Seoul after the incident. She has been living with various troubles such as depression, reports of binge eating due to stress, and one time when she was working part-time jobs, she actually stole some money from the convenience store where she was working at, and she also received punishment for stealing some money. Later, Sarah also sued the police department and asked for compensation from the government, and Sarah received about $55,000 awarded by the government due to the unprofessional police investigation. Also, 8 investigators who also worked on Sarah's case received some sort of punishment for the lack of their professionalism. In the movie, you'll constantly see that it's portrayed as if no adults in Princess' life were truly there for her. And I believe that was a great reflection of how Sarah was really treated in real life. The school system all rejecting Sarah all because she was a victim of this horrific, unbelievable crime. The police, hello, the people you think you can trust the most, they also failed her. The suspect's parents also being adults treating a little 14-year-old like this. All adults in her life failed to bring justice for Sarah. It is so hard for even adults to speak up about something like this if it happened to you, let alone a 14-year-old girl. So I applaud Sarah so much for her courage. I have no idea how she even dealt with this, honestly. In 2013, the laws in South Korea has changed where SA/R cases are considered a federal crime. The main suspects' faces also have been leaked a long time ago on the internet. Also, some people leaked, what they're doing now today. Apparently, one of the suspects even sued someone for leaking their information online. He was saying that, his life has been ruined because, there's no evidence that he did anything, and his girlfriend broke up with him because of this. Because the suspects were all born in 1986, they would be 36 years old today. A lot of them married, have jobs, been to college, and Sarah would be around 33 years old. It is just so crazy that this case just feels like a movie. But because of the attention that the movies and stories have gotten, the laws were able to be changed. Let me know if you guys have seen Princess Han movie, what you guys have thought of it. I personally think it's important to talk about this because I didn't even know about this case until I researched it. And it is so important to protect our friends, our kids. And I think it's even more important for adults to hear cases like this so that we do not turn a blind eye for something like this to happen again, and how love to your kids and inside of a home is so important on how these kids turn out to be. Let me know what you guys have thought in the comments down below. Remember to like and share this videos for it to be seen and to be heard. If there's any cases you would like me to cover, remember to email me right there, and see you guys in my next video. Bye.